Hey there, friends and enemies. This is your friend or enemy, 4A's Counters. I wanted to come to you briefly to talk about um, the absolute disaster that is Magic the Gathering's standard format right now. For those of you who've been paying attention, Magic had its Pro Tour Final Fantasy this past weekend. Um, for those who have maybe been paying less attention, Final Fantasy is driving just crazy business to Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast. Best selling set ever. Was that way before the official launch, during pre orders. The scalping and mayhem that has become seeking out these Final Fantasy products, especially the collector boosters, is pretty wild. But today's video is about something that is the opposite of wild. It's dead. Sadly, the standard metagame is about as dead can be. And I kind of wanted to talk through some feelings I had watching the Pro Tour this weekend. I'll preface this by saying that my commentary is coming from a place of fandom. I like Magic the Gathering. I don't watch it to hate on it. I like to play it on Arena. I play it in person. I enjoy brewing and thinking about my side board and all sorts of, kind of trinkety tinkering components, so this isn't just about hating on something from afar. This is a game I love. This is a game I play, a game I spend money on in terms of the cards I collect for the decks I try to build. I love Standard. I think Standard is one of the best ways to play Arena. I think Standard, like anytime you can go to a locals, any kind of LGS experience and play Standard, it's a lot of fun. But Pro Tour Final Fantasy really reinforced what's so problematic about Standard right now. A lot of great Magic the Gathering creators are talking about this. You might be tired of talking about this, so I'll try and be brief and see if we can't find some positivity in all of this just atrocity. Long story short, the winner of the Pro Tour this past weekend was a mono red aggro player. Mono red was the third most popular deck in the field, behind Izzet Prowess and Azorius Omniscience. Perhaps unsurprisingly, by the time we got to top 8 on Sunday, the field was split. There were 4 mono red aggro decks and 4 Izzet Prowess decks, which meant that red cards were present in every deck, specifically cards like Monstrous Rage, which just what a terrible card this is. Who would ever think that a card that turns off the function of blocking would be a good idea in standard gameplay? I get this card in a limited format. I get it in a commander singleton type format. Obviously, when you look at modern or vintage, this card isn't going to move the same kind of mountains. But even in Pioneer, there's a mono red aggro deck that's basically a standard deck. So that just shows you the power creep, especially because Monstrous Rage gives the targeted creature trample. It gives it trample through the monster roll token that it attaches. It basically makes blocking impossible in any kind of typical sense. You know when you play a red player or an Izzet player that if you go to block their seemingly innocent Monastery Swiftspear or some kind of mouse creature or one of the Cori Steelcutter tokens that are generated, that Monstrous Rage, maybe even more than one, is waiting for you. Well, anyway, long story short, what I found most interesting about the weekend was how the broadcasters and Wizards had to sort of shape a narrative of unique and interesting perspectives around something that is completely not unique and not interesting. There are a lot of commentary about the types of Izzet builds that were brought to the field and the types of tech cards and spicy deck choices being made by players. And when you actually look at the breakdown of number of players and record and win, you can see that, mono red had a 60% win rate, which is just in a what's supposed to be a competitive environment. That's obviously a bad sign. And then when we see the most popular deck, Izzet, we go, oh, it didn't even win 50% of its matches. Well, that's because there were a lot of players who brought the deck were probably not great at piloting it, and a lot of other decks brought main deck and sideboard hate for the Izzet prowess matchup, making it sort of more of an uphill battle. Where the push comes to shove is when we actually just look at the standard decks and players with over 8 wins. You will see a very obvious trend. The champion, and congrats to the champion. This isn't a knock on it. It takes a lot of effort to win a Pro Tour event, a lot of skill. This isn't about any player or any one player's deck choice. But we can see here pretty dominantly that the two most popular meta calls, the red base decks, as well as Azorius Omniscience decks, make up the field of players who had 8 wins in standard. So, say what you will. Shout outs to Mitchell Tamblin for going 8-2 with Azorius Control. I was impressed with the deck that Jake Beardsley and PVDDR brought, this sort of play on Izzet prowess that was less focused on Steel Cutter and Monstrous Rage and was focused on kind of a different approach to winning. Talk more about that in a minute. But at least for, what we saw over the course of the weekend was pretty obvious that this is bad. You don't want to see the same 1 or 2 decks or 3 decks being the only decks with 8 wins in the standard portion of the event. Izzet prowess dominated the metagame. I don't want to talk about this deck. I'm so bored by cards like Cori Steelcutter, so bored by cards like Monstrous Rage. Oh, he only played 3 instead of 4. What a unique deck choice. All the ways in which people tried to come up with, here we go, like this kind of language. Rob's list stood out with a few unconventional choices. He ran 4 copies of the completely busted Final Fantasy 3 drop Vivi, and he also played Wild Ride. Yeah, that wasn't a common combination of cards at all. Like, stop it. This person was running a Cori Steelcutter deck with a ton of cheap cantrips and a ton of cheap ways to refuel his hand. This is not a unique or interesting game plan. It just happens to be the best game plan, right? Oh, and mono red, burn bright. Let's see, did this person also do something? His list stood out for its use of 4 Twin Moss Stormbrood over the more common Witchstalker Frenzy. This was something that was happening all weekend long. It was like, how can we possibly find something interesting to talk about in this wasteland of uninteresting gameplay? Orzhov Demons boasted the best win rate. There was 1 player on Orzhov Demons. Why are we doing this? Oh, the Orzhov Demons player went 7-3. Don't count out Orzhov quite yet. Like, shut up. This is ridiculous. There were some interesting Golgari Roots decks that players like Ely, Cassis, and others brought. And I'm always into like the players that are willing to bring something a little off center to an event like this. This is a hard event to qualify for. It's a hard event to play in. It's a long event if you play well. So shout out to any and all players who were willing to go for something, off the beaten path. Azorius Control, Control did pretty poorly, nowhere near a well-performing deck in any, the Jeskai version, the Azorius version, some of the other rogue versions of Control that might have been brought. Just didn't really stand a chance. PVDDR's deck was spicy. I do think this build is interesting. It's most interesting because it does not play Monstrous Rage or Cori Steelcutter. The deck is built around Agatha's Soul Cauldron, which is main deck hate for the Omniscience deck, as well as then basically trying to copy Vivi's ability, as well as the ability of some other powerful creatures, putting creatures in the graveyard, and then getting their abilities through Soul Cauldron, and just sort of snowballing from there. Very interesting deck idea. It was cool to see PVDDR play in the event, and I believe one of his matches was featured, and it was cool to watch him play well and pilot this deck. And this is where, for me, the most obvious thing that needs to happen is that our good friends Monstrous Rage and our good friends Cori Steelcutter should be banned. I think that's maybe not obvious to everyone, but it's obvious to me. And so we shall see what happens. I did the math, and it's been 91 days since Wizards did not ban Monstrous Rage when they had the chance. I think a lot of standard players since then have moved on from the game until things improve. I think a lot of players have found other outlets for their creativity and their money. Games like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Lorcana, One Piece, maybe just taking a break, going to touch some grass, breathe some fresh air. I remember how I felt. I had worked really hard on learning the standard metagame, building my standard deck, competing at SCG Atlanta, competing at locals, really enjoying standard as a format, both online and in person. And March 31st was like the day standard died to me. It was completely crazy to me that they didn't ban Rage then, as well as Up the Beanstalk. The issue we're going to run into now, because format rotation will be occurring in the fall. There will be a spotlight series for the new Edge of Eternities. What we'll be seeing at that time is several sets will rotate out. Unfortunately, cards like Monstrous Rage, Cori Steelcutter, Up the Beanstalk will not rotate out of standard until at least February 2027 without some kind of ban. And I think that's where we're going to be in a lot of trouble. I really hope there's a ban list coming at the end of this month. I really hope and expect Rage to be on it. I hope Steelcutter is on it. I wouldn't be surprised if Steelcutter isn't. It's a newer card, and maybe they'll want to see what the format looks like without Rage in it. I would also highly recommend that if you're going to ban Rage, go ahead and ban Beanstalk as well, because the issue we're going to run into, especially if Steelcutter gets banned or restricted, is that we're just going to go back to the red deck, Overlord deck format that we were in prior to Steelcutter's release. The format isn't fixed by getting rid of Steelcutter alone. You have to ban Rage, Beans, and Steelcutter. Maybe there's some other bans. People have been calling for Omniscience to be banned. I think combo decks like Omniscience don't necessarily require a ban. Yes, a turn 4 Omniscience hurts, but the reality is that to me is like a rogue strategy when standard has an opportunity for decks to come to the forefront, creative deck builders to have a chance to build something when there's just more balance in the format. Omniscience, I don't think requires a ban, but who knows? Maybe it'll get the axe too. But big picture, I just had a few thoughts I wanted to share that it's quite crazy to me that this was 91 days. 91 days since Rage could have been banned and wasn't. And now here we are with, metagame mentor, standard lessons from Pro Tour. The only lesson is that you fucked up 91 days ago. Is that what it was? Yeah. That's the only lesson here. You completely dropped the ball and screwed up 91 days ago. And so shout out to everyone involved in screwing up that decision in March. Shout out to everyone who allowed Pro Tour Final Fantasy to be an embarrassment. This is just a game. It's a card game. I'm not losing sleep over it, but certainly think we can do better. And I look forward to the banned and restricted list. And even if I'm disappointed by that banned and restricted list, we are only a few months away from rotation, which is desperately, desperately needed. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you think that Rage or Steel Cutter or Beans should not be banned, let me know why. If you think there are some cards I'm not thinking of that do deserve to be banned, let me know why. And thanks for watching.